For decades, fans have seen Star Trek as a saga of teamwork, exploration, and unity in the face of the unknown. However, William Shatner is now lifting the veil on the chaos that simmered behind the scenes, a world far from the idyllic vision portrayed on screen. Fistfights, sabotage, and bitter feuds weren't just part of the plot. They were part of the real drama unfolding on set. So, why did one of the series' most iconic scenes nearly cause a mass walk-off from the cast? And how did Shatner's decision-making turn him into one of the most despised figures on set? Stick around. This is Star Trek like you've never heard it before. William Shatner's life began with a touch of drama even before his first breath. Born on March 22, 1931 in Montreal, Canada, Shatner's arrival was marked by a record-breaking snowstorm that trapped his family at home. His mother, unable to make it to a hospital, gave birth in the house, setting the tone for a life that would often feel like it was scripted for the stage. From an early age, Shatner was drawn to acting. By the time he was just 8 years old, he enrolled in an acting school run by a well-known Canadian actress. By the age of 10, he was already acting professionally, marking the beginning of a career that would span decades. His first role was in a CBC radio show, The Magic Flute. A few years later, he portrayed Tom Sawyer in a local theater production, earning rave reviews for his remarkable stage presence, something that set him apart even at that young age. Shatner's academic life, however, didn't come easily. In 1948, he started attending McGill University, but he wasn't the best student. He later admitted to hardly attending classes, yet he found his true calling in the university's vibrant theater scene. By 1950, Shatner wrote and performed in a student play that became a huge success, even garnering the attention of the CBC. His early career was already marked by moments of brilliance that hinted at the star he would soon become. In 1956, Shatner took a bold leap and moved to New York City, determined to pursue acting full-time. His first notable role came in the Broadway play Tamburlaine the Great, though the production closed after just 20 performances. Still, for a young actor with no formal training, it was a significant step forward. Broadway opened the door, but it was television that would make Shatner a household name. Throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s, Shatner was everywhere. He appeared on iconic shows like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Defenders, and The Outer Limits. Yet, it was his appearances on The Twilight Zone that showcased his true range. In 1960, he starred in Nick of Time, where he played a man obsessed with a fortune-telling machine. The following year, in Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, Shatner cemented his reputation as a master of tension, playing a man terrified by a creature on the wing of a plane. These roles demonstrated his uncanny ability to portray characters teetering on the brink of panic. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. In 1963, Shatner almost became a TV star in an entirely different genre. He starred in a pilot for a show called Alexander the Great, where he played the legendary conqueror. The show featured a stellar cast, including Adam West, who would later become the iconic Batman. The pilot, which centered on the Battle of Issus, would have been a major departure for Shatner, a historical epic that might have altered the course of his career entirely. However, the pilot was never picked up, and Shatner's fate would take him down a different, far more historic path. The dynamic between Shatner and his co-star Leonard Nimoy reached a boiling point. On the set of Star Trek, tensions were rising as the cast and crew struggled with the ever-present pressure to deliver something groundbreaking. While Shatner and Nimoy's on-screen chemistry was undeniable, behind the scenes, the two men often clashed, and it wasn't just limited to their roles in the show. The two were frequently at odds over the direction of their characters, with Shatner pushing for more focus on Captain Kirk, and Nimoy fighting for Spock's development. As Star Trek progressed, Shatner's portrayal of Captain Kirk began to cement itself as an iconic character. However, the role came with its own set of difficulties. Shatner himself later admitted that he wasn't always prepared for the demands that came with playing the show's central figure. He was constantly under pressure to be the perfect leader, a role that required him to be both strong and vulnerable. And sometimes that left him in conflict with the show's creative team, including Nimoy, whose Spock character began to garner more attention and fan support. The friction was evident in the creative processes that occurred behind closed doors. Shatner and Nimoy often rewrote scripts, especially for scenes involving their characters, which led to some resentment from the rest of the cast and crew. In fact, by the third season, some of their co-stars jokingly referred to the show as the Shatner-Nimoy Show, a playful but pointed jab at the growing prominence of the two stars. Despite these behind-the-scenes struggles, Star Trek became a cultural phenomenon, and much of that success can be attributed to Shatner's willingness to evolve Captain Kirk's character. In an industry that values innovation and creativity, Shatner's ability to bring humor, complexity, and relatability to the role of Captain Kirk set the show apart from other sci-fi projects of the time. This wasn't just a captain leading a crew across the stars, it was a character who faced personal dilemmas, made mistakes, and showed vulnerability, traits that made him not only a leader, but also a human being that the audience could root for. But as the series continued, Shatner's dynamic with his fellow cast members, especially Nimoy, became increasingly fraught. What appeared on screen as a deep friendship between Kirk and Spock was sometimes strained off camera. Shatner, who had been the focal point of the show from the start, began feeling the weight of the demands placed on him. Nimoy, for his part, had his own set of frustrations, especially as Spock's popularity grew. Nimoy's character became a fan favorite, and the balance of power in the Star Trek universe started to shift. One of the most infamous moments of tension occurred during the filming of The Trouble with Tribbles in 1967. Shatner and Nimoy, along with the episode's writer David Gerrold, spent marathon hours rewriting and fine-tuning dialogue. This process left many of the secondary characters' lines on the cutting room floor, causing frustration among the rest of the cast. However, despite these behind-the-scenes challenges, the episode became a fan favorite, showcasing the undeniable chemistry between Kirk and Spock. By the third season, the friction between the show's two leading men had become so evident that it permeated the set, with Shatner's larger-than-life personality often clashing with Nimoy's quiet but fiercely intellectual presence. Still, through it all, they created something special, a legacy that transcended the small screen and left a lasting imprint on pop culture. Despite the personal struggles and on-set tension, Star Trek would go on to become one of the most beloved and influential franchises in television history. But the behind-the-scenes drama, the power struggles, and the egos all contributed to shaping the show into the iconic piece of television that it is today. As Shatner reflects on his time playing Captain Kirk, he recognizes that it was this very conflict, this mix of collaboration and tension, that helped create a character who was both a fearless leader and a deeply relatable figure. Component placement Shatner had been one of the most famous faces in television, but now he was struggling to transition away from the role that had defined him. The world knew him as Captain Kirk, and the shadow of Star Trek loomed large over any new project he attempted. His personal life was in turmoil, his career stalled, and the pressure of being so tightly associated with one character started to take its toll. However, the challenges didn't stop there. After Star Trek ended in 1969, Shatner's career faced a difficult period of reinvention. He found himself typecast, unable to shed the image of the heroic captain of the Enterprise. This was a difficult reality for a man who had spent his whole life in pursuit of acting, only to find himself limited by the very role that had brought him fame. His frustration was compounded by the fact that his personal life was in shambles. His first marriage to Gloria Rand had ended, and the emotional distance that had grown between them during the long hours spent on set contributed to the breakdown of their relationship. During this period, Shatner was grappling with his own identity. He was no longer Captain Kirk, but the world continued to view him as that character. The constant struggle to break free from Kirk's shadow became a battle Shatner would fight for many years. His next few years were marked by a string of underwhelming roles in television and film, none of which could bring him the same kind of success he'd seen on Star Trek. But instead of accepting his fate, Shatner refused to give up. He channeled his frustration into reinventing himself. Through sheer determination, Shatner began to take on more diverse roles, including comedic parts that allowed him to show his range and sense of humor. In the 1970s, he took on roles that were far removed from Kirk's heroic image, including a memorable turn in the cult classic film The Devil's Reign. While these roles didn't bring the same level of fame, they began to open doors for Shatner to showcase his acting skills beyond the iconic Star Trek universe. It wasn't until the 1980s that Shatner began to embrace his legacy and use it to his advantage. He took on a number of new projects, including the hit series T.J. Hooker, which gave him a platform to reinvent himself in a completely different role, as a tough police officer. This was the start of a new chapter for Shatner, one where he learned to embrace his past and use it as a springboard for future success. Shatner's ability to reinvent himself, even after his career took such a dramatic downturn, is a testament to his resilience. It wasn't just about overcoming the struggles of his personal life and the pressures of fame. It was about finding new ways to connect with an audience who had once seen him as nothing more than Captain Kirk. Through humor, reinvention, and ultimately embracing his past, Shatner proved that a single role does not define a person's entire career. His journey from Star Trek to T.J. Hooker, and eventually to the varied roles he would later play, was a true testament to his strength and ability to adapt. Looking back, Shatner's career is an impressive example of the ups and downs of a life spent in the spotlight. The intense, sometimes toxic, atmosphere on the set of Star Trek left its mark on him, and his personal life bore the scars of the sacrifices made for the role. Yet, despite the hardships, he continued to evolve as both an actor and a person, ultimately embracing the very legacy that once haunted him. His resilience turned what could have been a permanent career derailment into an opportunity for reinvention, proving that sometimes the greatest stars are those who can rise above the challenges life throws their way. Shatner's path to redemption was paved with years of struggle and heartache, but his return to Star Trek in 1979 marked a turning point that would propel him back into the spotlight. Before that, his career had been in free fall. In the early 1970s, Shatner was a far cry from the rising star he'd once been, the one who had been hailed as the next Marlon Brando. Instead, he found himself in a financial and professional hole so deep that it seemed impossible to escape. His roles were limited to low-budget films, ones that didn't do much to revive his career: Big Bad Mama, The Devil's Reign, and Kingdom of the Spiders, none of which contributed to the reinvention he so desperately sought. They were far from the kind of serious roles he had dreamed of, and were only a temporary fix for the mounting bills. To make matters worse, he had been pigeonholed as a sci-fi and horror actor, which made it increasingly difficult for him to break away from the shadow of Star Trek. His once promising career now seemed stagnant. Worse still, he was struggling financially. Shatner, in a desperate bid to keep his family afloat, found himself living in a camper in the San Fernando Valley, a far cry from the Hollywood glamour he had once known. That period, as he later called it, was one of the lowest points in his life, one he could barely bring himself to speak of. He had gone from being a television star to a man who couldn't even afford Christmas presents for his daughters. He wrapped up his old Star Trek phaser and other memorabilia, giving them as gifts. It was a humbling and painful chapter in his life, but Shatner never gave up on his dream. In 1979, his fortunes took a dramatic turn. Paramount, looking to capitalize on the success of Star Wars, 1977, decided to bring Star Trek back to the big screen. They offered Shatner the chance to reprise his iconic role as Captain Kirk, with a hefty paycheck and some creative control. At 48, Shatner was determined to prove he could still do it. He worked relentlessly to get in shape, losing 25 pounds through a strict regimen of diet and exercise. But returning to the role wasn't without its challenges. The film's script was constantly changing. Sometimes even on the same day, scenes were scheduled to be shot, and Shatner found himself clashing with the director and writers. He was especially passionate about adding a daring space jump scene for Kirk, but due to budget and safety concerns, that never came to fruition. Despite these struggles, the film, Star Trek, the motion picture, premiered in December 1979 to excitement from fans. Shatner's portrayal of Kirk, now more mature and refined, was praised, and the movie grossed a respectable $139 million worldwide. Though it wasn't a massive hit, it provided the much-needed boost Shatner's career needed. Then came Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan in 1982. With a smaller budget, the film not only surpassed its predecessor in financial success, grossing $95.8 million, but it also became a critical darling, widely regarded as one of the best films in the Star Trek franchise. From that point on, the Star Trek films exploded into a cultural phenomenon, spanning 13 films between 1979 and 2016. Shatner's legacy as Captain Kirk was cemented, and iconic lines like "Beam me up, Scotty" and "Live long and prosper" became ingrained in popular culture, transcending the series itself. Shatner's return to Star Trek marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The films not only revitalized his career, but also brought him a deeper understanding of the character that had defined him. He became known not just for playing Kirk, but for the leadership, charisma, and dedication that he brought to the role. His journey from nearly homeless to becoming a revered actor in one of the most iconic franchises in film history is a testament to his resilience and determination. In many ways, it mirrored the character of Captain Kirk himself, always facing adversity head-on and never giving up. Shatner's story is one of redemption, one that demonstrates that even the brightest stars can face the darkest times before rising again. That it left a lasting impact on TV audiences, solidifying his role as not just a space explorer, but a tough, gritty police officer. Yet, despite the show's success, Shatner's life and career were constantly shaped by his past, particularly by Star Trek, which, for better or worse, continued to define him in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. While Star Trek was an indelible part of his identity, the transition to T.J. Hooker allowed Shatner to redefine himself. It was a testament to his versatility as an actor, although his connection to the iconic Star Trek role loomed large. Shatner's commitment to the part of Sergeant Thomas Jefferson Hooker was undeniable. He performed his own stunts, sometimes risking his life, as seen in the infamous helicopter scene where he hung 2,000 feet above the ground. These daring feats earned him the respect of fans, but they also took a physical toll, with Shatner sustaining injuries such as broken ribs and concussions. His relentless dedication to making T.J. Hooker as authentic as possible played a major part in the show's popularity. The chemistry between Shatner and his co-star Heather Locklear was another critical factor in the show's success. Locklear joined the series in its second season, and her dynamic with Shatner became one of the most engaging aspects of the show. Shatner, by this point, had become a seasoned actor, and he embraced his role as a mentor to Locklear, guiding her through the pressures of sudden fame. Off-screen, the mentorship they shared fostered a bond that contributed to the show's appeal. Despite the show's success, Shatner's career wasn't without its struggles. His time as Captain Kirk continued to haunt him, both as a legacy to live up to and a shadow that loomed over many of his future projects. The Star Trek films, particularly Star Trek V, The Final Frontier in 1989 highlighted the tension between Shatner's desire to take creative control and the commercial realities of Hollywood filmmaking. While Shatner sought a profound and introspective journey for the crew of the Enterprise, the studio had different ideas, leading to a clash of visions. Shatner's candid reflection on the failure of Star Trek V revealed just how difficult it was to balance the weight of his legacy with the demands of directing a film that felt true to his vision. The movie's financial underperformance, despite a $35 million budget, was a sharp blow to Shatner's confidence. In 1989, as the Star Trek franchise struggled, T.J. Hooker offered a refreshing contrast. The show, while very different from the world of Star Trek, allowed Shatner to re-enter the public eye with a different kind of character, a tough, no-nonsense cop. The transition from space commander to police officer was a risky one, but Shatner took the opportunity and made the role his own. His real-life experiences of pushing through challenges and the fame from his earlier successes made his portrayal of Hooker authentic and relatable. This resilience in the face of personal and professional adversity was part of what made Shatner a lasting figure in Hollywood. About their complicated relationship, marked by both deep affection and moments of tension. Shatner's willingness to open up about his friendship with Leonard Nimoy showed a side of him that was far removed from his on-screen bravado, revealing a man who was deeply affected by the loss of his close friend. Their bond was one of the most iconic partnerships in television history, and Shatner's reflections on their friendship painted a picture of two men who, despite their professional rivalry, shared an undeniable connection. Despite the ups and downs of his career, William Shatner's versatility and resilience have made him one of Hollywood's most enduring figures. From the Star Trek franchise to Boston Legal, his performances have spanned across genres and decades. His quirky humor and larger-than-life persona have made him a household name, while his more intimate moments in roles like Denny Crane have showcased his depth as an actor. In addition to his acting, Shatner's ventures into music, writing, and business have solidified his legacy beyond the screen. His work with Priceline.com in particular reshaped his career, proving that his skills extended far beyond acting. His role in the brand's ads, which included over 100 commercials, became iconic in its own right, showing Shatner's ability to turn an unusual gig into a decades-long partnership that paid off financially. Shatner's music career is another surprising facet of his multifaceted life. His spoken word album, The Transformed Man, might have been initially met with skepticism, but it eventually garnered a cult following. Later, his collaboration with Ben Folds on the album has been demonstrated that Shatner had real musical chops, with songs like Common People becoming unexpected hits. His performance at the Glastonbury Festival at age 74 was a testament to his enduring energy and willingness to embrace new opportunities, regardless of age. Shatner's literary achievements are just as impressive. Having authored over 30 books, his writing spans from sci-fi to personal reflections, exploring themes of science, technology, and his life in Hollywood. Tech War remains a cult favorite, while I'm working on that saw him delve into the world of science and its connection to the science fiction he's so famously associated with. His memoir, Leonard, which explored his relationship with Leonard Nimoy, was particularly poignant, shedding light on a friendship that had been the cornerstone of his career. Through it all, Shatner has proven to be far more than just Captain Kirk. He's an actor, a businessman, an author, and a musician, constantly reinventing himself and embracing new challenges. His career has not been without its hardships, but his ability to navigate those difficulties, whether in his personal life, his professional struggles, or his artistic ventures, speaks to his resilience. William Shatner's journey, full of unexpected turns and remarkable achievements, is a true testament to the strength of his character and his enduring place in pop culture. William Shatner's life has been filled with as many twists and turns as the plots of his most famous roles. At 90, he remains as active as ever, continuing to break boundaries both personally and professionally. His 2020 album, The Blues, which featured collaborations with iconic musicians, was yet another testament to his versatile career. In 2022, Shatner released Boldly Go, Reflections on a Life of Awe and Wonder, a memoir that reflected on his extraordinary life journey, including his awe-inspiring trip to space in 2021 with Blue Origin. This experience cemented Shatner's legacy not just as a television icon, but as someone who continues to explore new frontiers, literally and figuratively. Shatner's personal life, much like his career, has been anything but predictable. His first marriage to Gloria Rand in 1956 marked the beginning of his family life, and together they had 3 daughters, Leslie, Elizabeth, and Melanie. However, as Shatner's fame skyrocketed in the 1960s with Star Trek, his marriage to Rand began to deteriorate. With the overwhelming pressures of his career, Shatner admitted that he felt little joy in the marriage, and they divorced in 1969, the same year Star Trek ended. In 1973, Shatner married Marcy Lafferty, and their shared love for horses led to a decade-long bond, even after their divorce in 1996. Despite the end of their marriage, they continued to share a connection through their passion for horses, even after parting ways. Shatner's third marriage was to Noreen Kidd in 1997, a union that started with love but tragically ended in heartbreak. Despite warnings from friends about her struggles with alcoholism, Shatner believed he could help her. Sadly, in 1999, Noreen died in a drowning accident at their home, which was later ruled as an accident due to alcohol and Valium. The loss of Noreen deeply affected Shatner, and the media's subsequent rumors about his involvement in her death only added to his pain. To honor her memory, Shatner started a foundation to help women fighting addiction. In 2001, Shatner married Elizabeth Martin, and for nearly 20 years, their relationship seemed to be a stable and supportive one. But in 2020, the two separated. Yet their story didn't end there. By 2024, Shatner revealed that they had reconciled and were living together again as partners. While they hadn't remarried, Shatner described Elizabeth as the zest of life, emphasizing that they had found a way to move forward, learning from past mistakes and supporting each other through life's challenges. Despite the ups and downs in his marriages, Shatner has always maintained a strong connection with his daughters. His children, who grew up with a father frequently in the spotlight, have all had their moments on Star Trek, with Shatner's legacy inspiring them to follow in his footsteps. As a grandfather, Shatner has found new joy in life, cherishing the time he gets to spend with his grandchildren, sharing stories, and making lasting memories. Even now, at 93, Shatner continues to live life to the fullest. Through all the triumphs and challenges, his story is one of resilience, love, and transformation. His ability to embrace new beginnings, whether in his career or personal life, shows that it's never too late to start a new chapter. From the helm of the Enterprise to the ever-changing world of personal growth, Shatner's life is a constant reminder that even the most legendary figures have to navigate their own journey of change, and with that, continue to inspire others along the way.